I'm Kristen Finch. I'm the Director of Research Computing Solutions with UWIT. And our main services are compute services, storage services, research computing consulting, so one-on-one consulting for our supercomputing research cluster called Hyak, and we're on the generation 3 called Klone. So Hyak is in the Chinook trading jargon of this region, the Coast Sahelish people of this land that we occupy. And Hyak means fast. So that's the name behind that. And then clone means 3, so 3rd generation. As I was mentioning before, we'll be launching a new GPU system this fall called Tillicum, which means the people. But Hyak Klone, our current cluster that is really doing a lot of work right now in the UW Tower, which is the biggest building in the U district with the W on top. That's our data center is in that building. It has over 40,000, almost 45,000 compute cores and nearly 1,000 GPUs. We continue to push that, and we support a lot of researchers, including students. So today we've set up an account for all of you to log in to, if you got my email, which means that you're here, we've already set up your account, but we'll test it and make sure that that is all set up correctly. We've set you up an account on Hyak Klone using the allocation for MEM-C. And so they have some compute nodes there that you can log into, send jobs with our job scheduler. And we're going to be logging in and using that today. This workshop is more focused on introducing you to Python and some Python concepts. But I think if we have a little bit of time today, I will show you also just how to log in to Hyak from the command line and point you to the direction of our documentation where we have some tutorials. So if your time in your mentorship here at UW this summer requires you to use the supercomputer, you'll know where to get help for that. Okay. And also Kai Chen is here. She's my colleague also with UWIT, and she was a postdoc previously in the materials science engineering department. I was a postdoc previously at UW in the biology department, so we both have some other like researcher information, but I think her expertise probably most aligns with the MEM-C background. So just so you know, we're both here to be resources for you, and our main focus is to provide support for our research computing services here at University of Washington. Okay. So we have a supercomputer. You can't see it right now. It's kind of like the cloud, right? It's on premise. For us, it's very different from the cloud because we actually can like see it and touch it and send things to it from not very far away. But it's similar to that. For you, it will be like logging into a remote server and having this access. And that can be a little bit, there's a little bit of a barrier to entry for some folks that don't have experience using the command line interface or using the command line to execute commands, to open directories, to view their files. Those can be a lot of new skills. And one thing that can be really complicated is maybe you want to use an application like Jupyter and you want to launch that in using the supercomputer behind it. But without this interface, which I'm going to show you today, there are many more advanced steps. And so this open on-demand platform is what I'm going to be introducing you to, and it is a way for you to launch these applications with a supercomputer running behind it more easily. All right, so but before I do that, in the email, I sent you a link to a GitHub repository, which I'll just go to it myself, and then I'll put the link into the chat. But it is github.com. So if you have the email, you can open this. But if you don't, it is github.com/uwrc/MEMC-REU. Put that into the chat. And this is where we've stored the materials for this workshop. So not all the materials are here yet, but the ones for today and tomorrow are. So I'll just give you a little walkthrough. The README is kind of like your table of contents for this information. And so today our content that we're talking about is in the introduction directory or folder. And we have these Python notebooks, which we'll pull into Hyak for you in a next step. And it goes through the steps that we're going to be launching today. So I just want you to know that this is here for a resource for you later if you want to continue exploring this on your own after this course. And we'll also be using this again tomorrow. But these are the basic login steps. I'm going to walk through this in just a second, but I just want you to know where you can find help to do this. One thing to note is that, oh, and for Tracy, if you are off of campus, so Tracy, that you're logged in on a Zoom right now, if you're outside of the UW campus network, then you have to set up the VPN to use Open On Demand. So all of us in this room today will be able to log in without the VPN. But when you try, if your housing is off campus, you'll need to use the VPN to be able to connect. And then lastly, our notebook for today will be live, doing this all live, but these are kind of my notes and some of the steps that we'll be talking about today. And then tomorrow we'll be going through Python exercises all day. Not all day, just the amount of time that I get you all here with me. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start off by logging in to Hyak's Open On Demand platform, which you can go to ondemand.hyak.uw.edu. Grab that from here. And if you want to find a place to click on that, probably in this Start Jupyter Notebook is where you'll find that you can just click on it there. So for me, I've already logged in today, but you might see that you need to log into UW with the login screen and do Duo two-factor authentication. But you'll know that it works once you see this dashboard. So I'll just take a few minutes, and if you all give me a thumbs up, I'll know that you are there. Okay. Are you there too? Okay. Tracy, I'm going to move forward, but if you are not, if you're having trouble logging in, put something into the chat and Kai Chen will help to walk you through that. All right, so Open On Demand. It doesn't look like a supercomputer. It just looks like something running through your browser right now, which it is. It's a graphical user interface that's attached to the supercomputer Hyak. And this homepage is just connected to print out our blog updates every month. We have a maintenance, and we just set up a little blog to tell our users what happened and to remind them that we have office hours twice a week and things like that. But one thing that it does have is if you go into files, you can find your home directory is there. And your home directory will look a lot different than mine. I have more content in my home directory because I've been using Hyak for longer. But this doesn't look like what you would expect for logging into a remote server, right? You can explore these files as if you are on a on your local device, right? You have like a file explorer here or Finder if you're a Mac user. This is something similar to that. So it kind of lowers the barrier of you being able to access your files. You can upload and download files here, make a new directory, make a new file. You can delete things, but also delete is permanent. So be careful with that. We cannot get them back. We do not take snapshots of the cluster storage because we don't have enough storage capacity to support that. So be careful. Don't delete anything that you need to have back. Once you have other storage spaces that you've built on Hyak, if that's something that you intend to do later on, they will also appear here so you can easily click on them. So for our service team, we have a space. I was in the Wasser lab, and the scrubbed is our like community free storage. Have all of you used like a command line interface before to explore a file system at all? No? Okay. So let's do something. I said we wouldn't probably get to this, but let's go ahead and jump forward a little bit. So a typical view of logging into the Hyak cluster is that you would use a terminal. So like I could open up just a terminal or Windows PowerShell or command prompt like that and log in. But also through Open On Demand, we have this terminal login, which you can use from your browser. So if I click Clone Login, it will open up a new tab. It will ask me for my password. You can note that I'm not going to share any secrets here because it will take my password, but it's not just gonna like print it out, you know, it's for security reasons. So no one looking over my shoulder or sharing my screen can see my password. So go ahead and put your password, but just know that it won't show it to you. So it might not look like it's working. And then I have to do two-factor authentication. So this is what you would see if you logged into Klone Hyak through the command line interface. Actually, there would be a different command if you were logging in just straight up through your command prompt, your PowerShell, or your terminal. You would need to use the command SSH, which is secure login, and then your UWNet ID at clone.hyak.uw.edu and do all the same thing. But have you all made it past this point before? Have you made it all past this point now that you see the message of the day, this Klone Hyak message? Okay, this is called the message of the day. It gives you a little bit of information. So our documentation to use this supercomputer is here, hyak.uw.edu/docs. You can also email us at help@uw.edu with help Hyak in the subject line, and that will be routed to us. And any reservations for maintenance, you can find out how to look at them. So are we all good? We have thumbs up. Everyone sees the message of the day. Do you too?
So you just push if you want to do a push, you enter 1, and it should show up on your phone.
Yeah, it should give you a push notification on your phone.
Not getting notification.
Do you have the Duo app installed?
Yeah.
Oh. Maybe do you have the app opened up?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, okay. Is it the same phone number that shows like up here?
Yes. I could try the phone call.
Okay. But you were able to get to this point just fine?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's something simple is missing. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a delayed. Yeah, can you help him, Kai-chan? So one thing to note is that when you enter a supercomputer, you have this command prompt on the terminal side, or on the command line interface side. So it tells you who you are and where you're logged into. So you are your UWNet ID. It's not Finch KN, that's mine. And then you're in Klone login 3, or it might be Klone login 1. We have 2 login nodes. So you could be logged into either one of those things.
Should I try the
And then this little tilde symbol is a shorthand for the directory that you are kind of spawned into. And that's a shorthand for your home directory. So everyone on Hyak has like a storage space with 10 gigabytes where they can put things that they need to do. It's not a ton of space, so you don't want to store a lot of things here, but it's enough for this workshop series anyway. And if I want to see what is in my home directory, I can use a command called list or ls, and that will list the directories and files that I have in my home directory. You might not have anything, so that might not have produced anything for you. But if you look back at our dashboard and in our Files Explorer, you will see that I have desktop documents, downloads, Finch KN, MEM-C REU, Miniconda, and those are the same things that I have here. So what the point I'm trying to make is that when you use the command line, you can explore the file system with command line based commands. But with Open OnDemand, you can also explore the file system by clicking through more similar that you would on your own laptop where you have Finder or a File Explorer. Did you know that every time you use Finder or something like that, like here I am in my downloads folder, anytime I like double click and I go into here, the double click action, it's actually running a command that is called change directory in the background. So it's like that command has been turned into this graphical user interface that I'm used to running into and interacting with, but I can do change directory CD and start typing MEM-C REU, that's the folder or the directory that we have our materials for this workshop. You don't have this yet, but I will give it to you soon. And that will let me be now inside of this other directory. So the command line, the point is that you're running these commands and it's instead of doing just a click, it's just a different kind of command to change your location or to go into a different directory, and then you need to list. It's not just going to list it for you. So that's the difference between like a graphical user interface and a command line interface. Is that kind of making sense? So if I double click on this MEM-C REU, which is the same folder that I just showed you on the command line, then it's showing me the same things that are inside of this as I was seeing on the command line. So this is all very new for right now. And some of these concepts will be coming up again and again. But if your mentorship is going to involve using this supercomputer Hyak, or your time in a degree, your degree program, maybe your degree program at the school that you are fully enrolled in, if it's going to use a supercomputer, then it's something that you'll become more familiar with. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
Well, say since the actual cluster.
Yeah.
Can I log into my normal GitHub account, or should I make an account that's directly like?
You can use your own, so you can like pull from GitHub without, I think you can pull without an account too. Yeah. But if you want to use Git to like pull or push or like make any changes, you'll have to connect it. Yeah. You don't have to have a separate thing. No. Okay. All right. So now that we are in Open On Demand, let's go through a few other fun things that we have access to. And one of them is our applications. So this is what I was talking about. If you're just looking at a cluster this way, it's like, oh, I have nothing to click. How do I open any software? How do I do this? And there are ways to do that, and they're a little bit more advanced to get started. But this graphical user interface, like the main idea of why we have set this up is that we've made it easier than ever to launch these applications. So we have a Jupyter notebook. That's what we're going to be using today. We have RStudio server set up. We have VS Code server set up, MATLAB, and then we even have a desktop. So if you had, let's say, a graphical user interface application, let's see what, I don't want to say something that I don't think would work because I haven't seen anyone try it. But let's say you have like a 3D graphics rendering application that we don't have an application for it here, but you can install it on Hyak and you want to launch it. Using this Klone desktop, it would just, in your browser, it would look like a desktop like PC there, and you could like find it and open it and launch it this way. So if we have a little bit more time at the end, I'll go through that. But for right now, let's get on with launching Jupyter. So I want everyone to find this menu and find the Jupyter button. And then you'll see this, which is your way to, it's like a form to submit to launch a Jupyter instance or launch an instance of the application. So in your account, you will only see MEM-C unless your mentor has added you to another allocation. So you should definitely have MEM-C selected here. I'm just going to keep it at UWIT because that's what I have. And then for you, you won't have as many of these, but you should choose the compute partition. So it should be MEM-C and then compute. And then we're going to go ahead and stick with the container data science notebook. But as you can see, there are some other container options here, which you can explore on your own. Although I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. The minimal notebook really just has Python and nothing else. The data science notebook has the packages that we're going to be using, like NumPy, Matplotlib, Pandas, those types of things. So we're going to use that today. And then if you had a custom notebook, you could also launch it this way. So we'll click Jupyter/data science notebook. And let's go ahead and start with Jupyter Lab. Although Jupyter Notebook looks very similar, Jupyter Lab just gives you a few more options. We're going to keep this at one task. We're going to use 1 CPU per task, and I think 5 gigabytes of, maybe you all, let's go ahead and bump it up to 10 because there's not very many of you here. And we don't want anything, we don't want any surprises. And let's bump this up to 2 hours, even though we won't be here for 2 hours, but let's just go ahead and not have any questions. So once we click launch, this becomes your job request. And so it's queued up. It's waiting for this job to start. Has everyone made it to this point where you have Jupyter, it's queued, and you have a big red delete button, don't touch it. So this gives you a little bit of information. Your job was created at this time. You've requested 2 hours. That means that if you don't stop this job before 2 hours has elapsed, then it will cancel automatically. And this number is very important. So if you have any like strange behavior and you want to talk to someone in our support team about a particular job that you are trying to run, this is the number that you can give us, and it will give us access, or it will point us in the right direction to find out what happened. And then there's a little bit more like advanced logs when you click on this button, but we don't have to click on that. So we'll just wait for it to start. Yeah. Did yours get started? Okay, and yours too?
Yeah.
Are we all on the same page? Okay. So if you've all clicked your Connect to Jupyter Notebook button, then you'll have a Jupyter Lab in the other tab. So here we go. Again, we're open to our home directory. This is where you are always start. So this looks for what you're seeing here, since we've gone through this already, it looks a little bit familiar, right? Like I showed you, my home directory had desktop, documents, downloads, Finch the MEM-C, REU, and some other things in here. So this is, you know, basically the same thing that I was showing you in the command line, and also the file explorer option of our Open OnDemand. See, if I go back to my home directory here, I see the same folders here. So this is another way to explore the file system on Hyak. And one thing that I want us to do is to go ahead and pull the files for this workshop to our home directory. And what I want you to do is to, instead of clicking a Jupyter Notebook kernel, first I want you to click on this terminal. And we're going to run a command to git clone the materials here. So you will have, after this step, you'll have a directory with MEM-C REU materials in it. So the command is git clone, and then I'll pull it up here. If you have the browser open with GitHub still, then you can click on, you go back to the code tab, and you find this green code button, and you just copy this HTTP here. I'll put it into the chat as well. So it's git clone with a lowercase g. And then I'll go back to Jupyter Lab. I'll do git clone paste. So this is what your command should look like. Oh no. Oh yeah, sorry. It's because I already did this before. But just so I can show you. There, now it's cloning MEM-C REU. Maybe. Refresh. Did it work for everyone? Oh yeah, here it goes. It was just like kind of slow for there for a second. Is it also cloning slowly for everyone else? Or is it?
Close, okay.
It's done? So you've got your Aptainer back here?
No.
Okay.
But I see like the file.
Yeah.
I see MEM-C in the directory.
Okay, great. I'm gonna refresh again. Great. So you see it over here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So once you get to that point, we're gonna enter this directory. And again, we can see this README file is the same thing that was online that I showed you before, but it's in the raw format, so it hasn't been rendered into the markdown beautified file. So mostly you want to look at this on GitHub, but just to show you, that's one of the files that were there. So if we go into our directory for introduction today, we see all the same files that I was telling you about before. So we have our Jupyter notebook now for starting up our Jupyter notebook session. So like I said, if you want to repeat these steps again later on your own, you have the instructions for how to start up your Jupyter notebook, including the form submission that we talked about, your job running, and then getting back to this point. This is right where we left off. And then there are instructions to go to this website if you need to set up the VPN for off-campus connection. And then finally, these are the rest of our notes for today. But we're going to be talking about this with a live notebook. So after this, we're going to start up a brand new notebook. Okay, so who here has used Jupyter notebooks before? Yes? For any classes?
Yeah, it was kind of like,
Or for fun?
I did it like on a Coursera
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like it was like a coding exercise,
Yeah.
and they had like little segments where you can, write your code.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that.
Yep. Okay, so Python is a coding language. Maybe you've heard of it. It is very popular because they say one of the reasons why it is so popular is because it's supposed to be readable. That as long as you understand like what a variable is and how to set up variables. So you all know what a variable is, like x equals 1, for example. X is a variable in that case. So you kind of save all of these objects. Could be a data set, could be a number, could be a string, could be an array. Any of these things you save as a variable. And Python is set up so that you would be able to say, okay, my variable equals this array, and now I'm going to apply this function, like mean. I'll get the mean from it. It's supposed to be very readable, so they've kind of a principle of making Python code is that you want it to be feasible for you to understand it like 5 years from now, but also for any person who comes along to be able to read and understand your code. And usually what happens is a Python programmer will make a Python script, which is a file.py. So that's the file extension. And they will just say Python and they'll run their script and it'll just do a bunch of commands all at once. But a great way to learn Python is to use Jupyter Notebook, because instead of having to make a beautiful script that can run from top to bottom and like continually going back to it and editing it and everything like that, this allows you to actually interact with Python. So you can like put in and we'll go over this more tomorrow in depth, but you can put in some command or something that you want to run, maybe a math operation, and you can just, shift return or shift enter, and it will run that and you'll have the result right there. So you can actually break down all of the operations that someone has done in their Python script, for example, and do this interactively. So it's a really great learning tool. Another great thing about Jupyter Notebooks is that, as you can see, what you're looking at here is not code, right? These are paragraphs. These are like very nicely rendered fonts and everything like that. Jupyter Notebook allows you to have blocks of text that is rendered as from Markdown, another language that just allows a few beautifications and flourishes. And then it allows you to have, let's see if I have any code blocks. Yes. So down here is what a code block looks like. So you can have this notebook where you really get an idea of the story and what you're trying to do. So if I'm an instructor, which I am right now, I can write out in the text, oh, we're going to do this, and this is, this is why we're doing this. This is the whole story behind it. And then I can have my code block right there. So I can have kind of this back and forth conversation with you about what you're doing or what you're about to do, what you've done in the code block, and like why you did it and what it means. So it really allows for reproducible science. It allows you to pass on your code or your notebook to someone else, maybe in your lab group, and they should be able to run it as long as they have a similar environment. They should be able to run it themselves. So that's the whole idea about why Jupyter notebooks are a great thing. They're great for learning Python straight out, and they're great for documenting your work. All right, so with that said, this is a notebook that I basically just like said everything that I wanted to. I'm not gonna read this all to you, but if you have any questions about Jupyter Notebook and want to read it yourself after the fact, you can do that. But let's go ahead and click this plus button, which I think will make a new Jupyter Notebook. Oh, it gives you a choice of what you want. So we're gonna click on this Python 3 IPy kernel. And we have here a new Jupyter Notebook, and it's completely blank. So one thing that we can do right off the bat is maybe we want to rename this notebook so that it's not just called Untitled. I get sad when I see like untitled things in places. I'm like, well, how do you know what it is? So anyway, let's call this intro _ demo, because this is your intro demo for today. All right, so Jupyter Notebook always automatically starts you off with a code block. And the reason that you know it is a code block is that it has these brackets over here. And so if I start typing, 4 plus 6. So what I did was I did 4 plus 6, and then I used the Shift Enter. That will execute the command. You can also do it with the play button, but it's really a lot faster if you just use Shift Return. They're like right next to each other, is Shift Enter. And that will give you, so Python, of course, can just do math operations. Not anything fancy, but it can do math operations. So what you've seen here is that I made 4 plus 6 in a code cell, and I executed that, and that gives me the sum, which is 10. If it gave me anything else, we would have a big problem. Okay. But let's say that instead of, starting off with code, I want to give some, some idea, some introduction about what I'm doing. I can change this cell to be that markdown format, that beautified rendered format that I was talking about. And the way that I can do that is first I'll push escape so that it's kind of unhighlighted. So again, if I'm in here, I can't change the format of this. But if I press escape, now I've just selected this cell. And if I want to convert it to markdown format, I push M, as in money. And now I'm in markdown format. So it's markdown format because I don't have my brackets over here on the side showing me that it's a code cell. And so markdown, if you go back to this, you can explore this notebook on your own later, but there are some like tips and tricks you can look up online, like a markdown cheat sheet or whatever, and it will give you information about how to make beautiful markdown notebooks. But we'll do a few things. So if I wanted to make like a big header, like a title, I would use the pound or hashtag, and I could say introduction to Jupyter. And then if I do my Shift Return, bam, it can translate that hashtag or pound. Let me open it again. Pound to introduction to Jupyter into the rendered format, which is our heading level 1. So our biggest heading. If I wanted to, I can continue editing in here. If I want to make a subtitle, I can say today's date is June 24th? Yeah. June 24th, 2025. Shift Enter. And now I have a slightly smaller header there. And now I can continue, and I can go and make a bulleted list, and I can say name, Kristen. And it'll continue. It kind of starts to remember, if you return after you've already started a bulleted list, just like in Microsoft Word, for example, it will give you a new bullet. So if I say, school, we'll pretend that I am a UW student. And if I want to make a sublist, then I would just do tab and then another star, or like a sub bullet underneath school. I could say my department is biology. And then you can get rid of that. And then if I Shift Return, then I have my bulleted list with 2 levels. So those are, just basic things. Another thing, let me recall, oh yeah, so let's go back in here. Code blocks. So let's say you want to explain someone that you're going to show them some code, but you don't want to execute it, and you want that to be in the markdown file, or in the markdown format. So you can make a code block by doing 3 backticks and then Python and then return, and then you close that code block with another 3 backticks. So if I start doing, you know, x equals, we'll say River Plate. It's one of the teams playing in the FIFA World Cup, or FIFA Club World Cup. And then print x. So this is not going to execute this, but it's going to show that this is a piece of code inside of my markdown format, like that. See how it has different formatting in there? But now if I want to execute this, I say, so we'll go through more variables and strings and all of that, so don't worry about the specifics of this. But if I did want to execute and print x, which in this case is River Plate, I would need to put that in here again. River Plate. Does this make sense?
What was the key you needed to push to put like Python and have a different format?
Oh yeah. So to make a code block, then you would do 3 backticks and then Python. And then to close that code block, you do another 3 backticks like that. And then if you just like, you're just typing a sentence, you say, we will use package NumPy tomorrow. So if I just execute it this way, it will just look like plain text. But a lot of us know from, you know, reading online and thinking about coding that sometimes people always like to do this, like they like to show this in a different format so that we know that it's something more technical, right? So if you want just in your line to have a, you know, a little extra formatting into code for NumPy, then you can have the backticks around it, and that will turn it into code without being a code block, just in your sentence. Does that make sense?
If you want one word or a phrase.
Yeah. Yep. So you just put backticks around it. You guys know where the backtick is? Huh?
Has to be free, right? All
No, so if you just want it in your line like this, you can just do it once, and then, but if you want a code block, then you want to be like backticks, and then you can actually have different types of code blocks. So, I think, so like we could make this into a bash is another language, a bash code block, but it looks exactly the same. But, yeah, anyway, that's how you do a code block. I think if you just do it with backticks and no language, huh? It just is formatted like Cody, but it's not with the beautiful color coding that Python has like determined for itself, you could say.
And if you wanted to put the output, you have to put the code in again and then run it.
Yeah, you want to do it in a code block, or else it will just be executed as this text, which doesn't do anything. It just like renders it into a readable format. Any questions here? Do you have a question over there? Oh, it's above the tab. It like shares the space with tilde, or the little squiggle. Yeah, yeah. Right, right. All right, any other questions? All right, so let's talk about, you know, you see here, there are some, so everything that we did just now, I was using, you know, shift return to execute the cells. Like I said, you can use, so if I click into here to activate this cell, I can use the like run button instead, like the play button to execute that as well, but keyboard execution is like a bit faster. Other things, maybe I want to have another cell below this markdown cell instead of going right away into this River Plate code cell. So if I wanted to insert another cell below, I would just use escape. Well, I think we're already escaped, yeah. So if you are in the cell, you can't do it. But if you execute the cell and then just click on it and you press B, it will give you another code cell below that. So I could say B, 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 and it'll just give me a ton of code cells. Or I could say on this one, if I wanted to make a cell above that, I would do A for above. A. Just give me a whole bunch of cells like this. If I don't like these, I can make them go away with X. Okay? A, X. Okay. Another way that you can delete a code cell, so if you're like just not inside of it, but if you're just selected it, you can do double D, DD, 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 and that will make it go away as well. Let's see what else. If I want to, so let's say that I have this code cell here. Right, I told you that we can convert it to a markdown cell by just pressing M, so that becomes a markdown cell. If I wanted to convert it then back into a code cell with a keyboard shortcut, I would just push Y, kind of for Python, I guess. Y. So M for markdown, Y for Python cell, M, Y, M, Y. Okay. So, but also you can do all of this with these buttons. You can also change so you can drag them into different places. Like this one, I can drag it. But I can also use these up and down arrows to like move it this way. And then these arrows or these buttons here, they insert above or below. And then of course you can use the delete button. And I think this is a duplicate button. Let's try it with this one. Yeah, so that will just duplicate your same code block right there. So the point is there is buttons to do everything. There's keyboard shortcuts to do everything. We haven't done anything too difficult. Tomorrow we're going to be doing more like actual Python stuff, making variables and strings and for loops and lots of fun. What else do we need to know? Let me just review my notes. Okay. So another thing that you might end up doing, I don't think we'll need to do that for this training series, is that you might decide that you want to change your kernel. And a kernel is basically what version or what version of Python, what packages you have installed and things like that. Right now we're in just a basic Python kernel, but we're using this container that has the packages that we'll be using for this series. But you could have, this Python container and you could change your kernel with this menu. You could go change kernel and then you could pick out a different, oh, those are my notebooks here, but you could pick out a different environment. So this is the environment that's running right now. It's just Python 3 with IPy You could make an environment on Hyak and then you'd be able to use that custom environment on Open OnDemand as well. But if you do need to do that for your mentorship with UW this summer, then we can walk you through that at a different time. We also have a training video about it. So if that seems like something that you want to do, you say, oh, I'm using this notebook like you showed us, but I don't have this package. How can you help me with that? We can definitely, that's something that we do all the time. So other things that you might want to do, so we'll use our markdown cell here. If I wanted to insert like a link to the Hyak documentation, for example, I could do, well, since it's in markdown format, I could probably just like copy this. And no, that only does it in VS Code. Okay. So anyway, we'll keep on using this. So if I have this link, if I just execute this, it will give me the link. But sometimes you want to hide a link and instead of just putting the link, you want to say like, find our systems information here or something like that. So that's the way to do it standard. But if I put this into parentheses and then out in front, if I put a square bracket, now inside of the square bracket, I can put what I want the text for this link to say rather than saying the link itself. So I can say this is Hyak systems. And if I execute that, now the link says Hyak systems instead of saying Hyak, the whole link. So that's another thing you can do in Markdown. But yes, I think like I was saying before I interrupted myself, there are a few, there's this table of information here which tells you a little bit more about Markdown and about stylizing your Jupyter notebook. But if you just Google, like a Markdown cheat sheet, then that will give you that as well. This is our documentation website. So this is just a pretty homepage. The real stuff is under this documentation tab. You looked at it? Okay. I would check out these over here. Yeah, so we have like a Hyak basics. So for anyone here, if you are interested in learning more about our supercomputer, we have this video tutorial and also this walkthrough tutorial, which gives you like basic commands, talks about the file system. If you're interested in software containers, you can use Hyak to practice that. And then Slurm is our job scheduler. So this would be where to start if you're wanting to use the job scheduler to scale up your computing and to use your MEM-C allocation, the account that we've given you. No, so just your logging in to open OnDemand is all that you need, and then you need to go to our interactive apps and select Jupyter, and then you just fill out this form. That's all you need. If you want to explore more the command line interface, if you want to go deeper into using the supercomputer, I actually would recommend just using it on your terminal and like logging in. It would look like this. So SSH Finch KN, but it would be your login at clone.hyak.uw.edu.